All right, go ahead.
I am Ervin Laszlo, and I'm on your superior self.
Ervin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. This is, I had to have you back on because I'm very interested in your work, very fascinated by your books. I know you have 3 more coming out, but I want to talk about the immutable laws of the Akashic field because I'm very interested in it, and the work in it that you mentioned is very fascinating. So thank you again for coming on.
Well, it's wonderful. I'm glad you find it fascinating. It was fascinating writing it too.
Sure. So I mean, so we talk about the Akashic field and the 3 laws that are associated with that. I want to know, like, when did you stumble upon this field?
Well, this field I only stumbled on as Akashic field, stumbled on perhaps before the year 2000 sometime, just before. But before that, I've been working on the new worldview of the universe and how it appears to us and what we can know about it, and developed this idea that this is basically a field that we are confronting. But then somebody said, I don't remember who saw something I was doing or read something, saying that, the ancient Hindu seers had a concept which they call the Akasha, and this is such a field, this is beyond space and time. And it seems to me that it is something like what you are talking about. So I looked into it, and this was a spontaneous response on the part of many people. I said, aha, yes, this is the Akashic field. So I started using it as the Akashic field. I'm very grateful for this tip.
Hmm. How did you learn about the laws? Like, how did you find the 3 laws?
Well, this is this long process of investigating what we can believe in is the real nature of the universe. So when I talk about the laws of the Akashic field, I talk about the laws of the universe as they appear to us. The universe appears as an interconnected field that has memory and that evolves. And these, in a nutshell, are the laws of what I consider the Akashic field. So when we really look at the universe in this sense, in the form in which it can make sense to us, what is this universe? How does it present itself? How can we move in it? It's not a mechanical aggregate. It's not just a large mechanism which has sort of inert pieces of matter bouncing about in it, which was the previous concept, the so-called classical Newtonian concept. So Newton didn't believe in it, but his followers did. So I came across this idea of a new paradigm that is needed, which fundamentally changes the way we look at the world. And in the largest sense, the largest context, it changes the way we look at the universe as our home, as something, as the area, is the domain in which solar systems have emerged, in which there are planets, in which there is at least this planet that we know about for sure because you are part of it, that has life.
Hmm.
And so this is all part. I didn't ever work specifically on an Akashic field. I worked on the idea, what is real? What can we know about the largest system that is our womb, and that is the source, as now to use the spiritual expression.
So this field is everywhere, right? Like, so when I think of the space in between you and I, right, and you make a lot of great points in this book, which fascinate me, especially the local idea and that this is all a hologram, right? So the what is it? The non-duality, the dual. What is it? The where the one particle spins, and it can be anywhere in the world, and
Yeah,
the other side of
right.
that particle spins.
That's the famous experiment, in which it shows that once you have a quantum particle in a laboratory anywhere, which is which can be split into two, and this can be done by high energy, then the second half, remains mysteriously connected with the first, even though you can shoot it far away. They have been experiments for 50 kilometers distance. You measure the second particle, the second half, and you find that the same characteristics are exhibited as on the first. So it's not just that the same would be, it's those characteristics that the first particle would have if it was affected by it, you know. So it's a response. The second half responds to the first. The two seem to be dynamically connected. And that's the physical basis of non-locality. Now, it turned out later on that doesn't only apply to the super small region of the microparticles, of quantum particles, that such things appear also when we go deeper into analyzing what is happening in our experience, what is happening in our consciousness, what is happening out there when we measure one particle, and not just a particle, one system, and look at the other one. Turns out that there are subtle interconnections, which actually very surprisingly go beyond the limits of space and time. Space and time are limited, you know, by the Newtonian paradigm, the Newtonian physics. You can't go any faster than the speed of light, as already Einstein found that. And then there are, as you go, the further you go, the more the effects diminish, as you know from the electromagnetic field. When you go away further than the square of the distance, is the measure of the diminishment, the decay of the effect. So all of these limits don't seem to apply. When you have non-locality, that means that the classical constraints of space and time are overcome. We are non-local, non-spatial, non-temporal. Space and time are there, but they do not affect what is happening. What is happening is effective as if the particles, the elements, the systems, or the beings that are involved would be immediately next to each other. Doesn't matter how far away they are. Not only in space, but even in time.
But the idea of the hologram makes sense, right?
The
No,
hologram is very, very relevant. I'm glad you raised that, Ray, because in a hologram is this curious property, which we now know in experiments, is that every bit of information that creates the holographic image in a field, in a medium, every bit of information is present in all of its parts. So if you take a holographic medium, it can be an image, can be a field, can be a substance of some kind, but as long as it has this holographic property, and the brain has holographic properties according to Pribram and other investigators, then it turns out that everything that makes that image is there in any one, no matter how small a part. The bigger the part that you illuminate, that you cope with, that you try to deal with, to recognize, the better it is. Just 1 minute. Can we just think 1 minute? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Just you turn this off. I can come back. Okay. So the smaller the area that you illuminate, the more faint the image. The larger the area, the bigger the image, the more articulate, the clearer the image, the more information there is in it. But the information is there already. So if this is a holographic universe, then everything that happens, all the information that makes the universe into what it is, rather than something completely random and chance-based, everything that makes the universe, that is present in every part. That means it's present in you and in me. So that's a very important implication.
yeah, it's kind of confusing when you think about the brain, right? Like they did experiments on animals where they chopped certain parts of the brain off, and in mice, they turned the brain different directions and put it in backwards, and the mice were able to still remember how to get through a maze or how to do certain activities. So, which means that every part is inside of the brain. That means as it's just like, the idea where you, if you have a hologram and let's say you break it into a million little pieces, you'll still have the entire picture in that one little piece because it is the collective of the whole. Same idea with the brain. It doesn't matter if you chop it up into different little pieces. it's still the collective. So even with the mice, it still remembers because the entirety is still there, even though, that's the idea of the hologram of the brain.
Well,
It's kind
the
of,
importance of this, the relevance is that everything, every part of our body, every cell in our body, every molecule in every cell has the set of information that makes the organism as a whole, that creates it. So if that's in it, then we have a guidance actually, then we have something we can turn to. You can't splice, you can't section, you can't fragment a living system. And no, actually no complex coherent system that emerges in nature. You can't segment it, you can't make it into half. That's the mechanical system. Living systems are intrinsically whole. So that's the old principle of holism coming back up again.
yeah. But the idea that the entire universe is already inside of us, how do we obtain different levels and higher, how do we achieve, well, how do we obtain, I guess, more information, more data? How do we increase our consciousness so that we can access different types of information?
Well, this is what the Eastern traditions have been telling us for thousands of years. This is also what the Western mystical tradition, Western Christianity mystical tradition as well, talking about. But then nowadays you talk about prayer and meditation. One on the East is more meditation, in the West is more prayer, but entering what amounts to an altered state of consciousness, a different receptivity. We perceive the world, we receive the world, and what we receive is information from the world. The world appears to us as an informed whole, which has elements of information that cannot be separated off. So at any point where we perceive something real from the world, its seeds, its source contains the whole. And that is a very important element because we are not little bits separated off from the whole. We are the whole in miniature, a big, big difference.
Mm. Yeah, we are the whole. We are connected to every, like that's one of the laws, connectivity, right, of the Akashic field.
I consider the first law. I mean, you can number them any way you like. But the fact is, what people are talking about is non-locality, is what I call in this book the law of connectivity of the Akashic field. In other words, the universe is intrinsically interconnected. It's a non-segmentable whole. So that's the basic idea. And if you think this through, you see it's extremely important because we are not little segments, partitioned off, chopped off from the rest. We are intrinsically one with that whole. And that is perhaps the biggest problem that we've been facing, or the core problem that we've been facing, that we have chopped ourselves off seemingly from nature, from the world around us, from the laws that make the earth and the biosphere what it is. We thought we can disconnect ourselves, but we can't. And if we try, we just create all these problems.
So you're seeing a lot of the problems in the world is because we're cutting ourselves off from that source.
Absolutely.
Well, how do we can reconnect? I think is it through coherence? Is that how we get back to it?
Well, one thing is to have experience. One can understand this, and if you try to look at what really the new sciences, the quantum sciences are telling us, and if you have a sensitivity for that and willingness and skills to understand it, then you'll find that, yes, they're telling you that the universe is an inseparable whole. Okay, so that's understanding it intellectually, but you can also feel it. And if you do this, then not just experience it, but undergo this experience. It's a feeling experience that you can do if you allow yourself to enter into a state of consciousness, into a state of mind in which you are sensitive. Not just be worried or concerned with the surface events, rushing about, trying to make good or trying to even to survive nowadays very often, but trying to look deeper. If you allow yourself to go deeper, yes, you can access it. We know that then the EEG waves, the electroencephalograph waves, are at a lower level, below the alpha level, in the theta level. you know, and not at the delta, the very high beta and delta levels. So then, then we know that there is actually another way in which the brain operates. The brain can operate in a way in which mystical experiences, unexplainable and unexplained experiences come about in the world. We can do that. Prayer, meditation, experience of art, experience of nature, go out and hear the birds chirp and the clouds float about you and the trees wave and all that, and be one with it. That's what the Japanese nowadays call forest bathing. But there's so many ways: art, nature, social contact, friendship, love. These are all elements in which can take us to a deeper level of consciousness.
Mm, I love all of that. Because I think, um, as a collective consciousness, I think that each of us as an individual can affect that, um, by doing things like art, like writing books, like having podcasts, putting out this energy, these vibrations, this coherence. And I think that affects the field. I think that it especially now, in the times that we live, I think it's more important than ever that we do these things, put this positive energy out, attract more of it, and affect and kind of awaken others too, right? Like I think that the more that they hear these types of ideas, the more that they're around people like yourself and they read your material, I think it awakens them to these ideas and they start learning it because, like you said, the universe is a collective whole, and we're a part of that. And you can just, I mean, you look at, if you go at a micro level and look at the cells and you look how they operate and you look how we operate and you look how the world operates, there's such a commonality in that. And that, when you awaken to those different ideas, I think that it allows you to access different levels of consciousness that kind of like baby steps you into these bigger ideas and allows you to awaken and experience, the universe as it is. What are your thoughts on that? Like, as far as the individual, like you and myself doing these types of works, like, can we make major impacts on large amounts of people?
Well, the oracle at Delphi said thousands of years ago, know thyself. That's the first maxim. If we think of ourselves as a mechanical aggregate, just externally related to the world around us, okay, then it doesn't make much difference if we disappear or what we do, because what we affect is only what these things are immediately around us. But if the world around us is an interconnected whole, then by affecting any part of it, we affect the rest. Just by being different, we affect the rest. Because we like it or not, we are affecting the whole world, just as the whole world is affecting us. Now, this was a slight exaggeration, but actually metaphorically very true. Not only are we in the world is in us. That's the quantum principle, really. And it's science, it's not just poetry. So we are switched into it. We are part of a larger whole. Now, this larger whole uh, is decay, is becoming fragmented, it's becoming disoriented and misguided, because there is an element in it which is a conscious species, a species that is able to create a major effect, whether it recognizes it or not. It creates a major effect, and that species has said goodbye to this deeper connection that is instinctively was ours and our forefathers. It still is, and so-called primitive cultures know that the environment, the world around us is them. They are part of it, and it is part of them. So that is a basic human attribute. You use a human insight with this tremendously wild rush toward more and more power and money and success defined in these terms. We have completely forgone the past couple of 100 years, at least in the Western or Westernized world. We have forgotten that we are part of a larger whole and that we are interconnected with it. We could do whatever we like, as long as it's successful, and success is measured in making money and becoming powerful. Then that's the only criterion. And this misguided attitude is decaying, disoriented, is all the D's that you can think of about the world, because it is creating a mess. It's creating crisis. But ultimately, the solution, the key is go back, find out who you are, find that you are part of the whole. Then I think we have a chance to come back, because our true nature is good. Our true nature is being part of it. Our surface aberration, maybe that was the word I was looking for, aberration. That this is a temporary interlude. If we survive it, which is still a good question, then we'll go back and live more like a natural being who's part of the biosphere, which is part of the Earth, and the Earth is part of the solar system, which is part of the galaxy, which is part of the universe. We are part of all that.
That is some beautiful stuff. I know I read there's so many great authors in this book that you have. I did reach out to Dr. Christopher Bach, I think his last name is.
But yeah, because Bates, yeah, it's
Hey,
called.
he has a book, LSD in the Mind of the Universe. I know there's some psychedelics sections in this book, and they're very powerful. What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like a lot of people have the same experiences. I've never done that, but to experience the universe in such a very vivid and very beautiful way. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there are many approaches to having this. I'm even describing in this book several of them. Many approaches. One of them is through LSD. The drawback of the LSD approach is it's effective because it gets you into an altered state of consciousness. But the drawback is that it also destroys brain tissue. That it's not healthy. It's dangerous in the long term. So why not use other approaches? Approaches of the mystics, approaches of the nature lover, approaches of the lover, all of these approaches that are the religious, spiritual person. All of these are available to us. So let's choose a good approach and not one that is damages
Sure.
us.
All this feeds into like that mindset that we have as humans. We want to find a shortcut to spirituality, to nirvana, to
Mm.
that higher awareness, and so we use things like LSD or which is not. I mean, LSD is what it is. Like I think we're doing a lot of great research in psilocybin and MDMA, alternate ways to alter our consciousness. But again, these are ways that we can immediately feel the oneness, feel the consciousness, feel the Akashic field, feel God, as opposed to sitting down every day and dedicating time to meditate or to live that life through that spiritual message, through that, the words of the mystics. That's just again showing us, we're trying to hack enlightenment.
Exactly, yes.
Um, but
Your own response, your own reaction when you read these ideas like that. It seems to me it says more to it. It's not just theory. It does say something. It's a recognition. I always say that the best answer, the best result of anything that I produce is not people saying, aha, and I understand, or there's something new or interesting. The best result is aha. It's so-called aha experience. Best result is I have known this, I recognize it now, help, thanks for helping it, but I have known this, I know it, it's in me. And this is when we get to a really deep, moving experience. It's not new, it's something that we just relearn, that we recognize with a hyphen, recognize.
mm, yeah, no, you have written so many books. You've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize twice. You are probably one of the greatest thinkers, in my opinion, of our time. Um, how old are you? You're almost 90, right?
89 will be in June.
89. Out of all these years of experience, all the research, all the all the conversations, what is the most important thing that you want to communicate with people? Like, what is it right now, looking back and moving forward? What is it the most simplest? Like, because your books are very detailed and very informative and very academic, like what is in the most simplest form, what do you want to communicate with the world?
Well, it seems theoretic, but I mean, it has deeper implications, obviously. Still going back to the oracle at Delphi, find out who you are. We are a fantastic creature. We are a conscious creature who can become aware of our connections, of our oneness. It's not just something that we imagine or something that we hear about or other people tell us. It's something that we can experience. So experience the world, experience who you are. You start behaving differently. And that is contagious as any virus or more. Start being, you said yourself, if you behave differently, it'll have an effect. Yes, it'll catch on. Because this is a natural thing, it's not something artificial. That's what I want to say. It's what you want to learn is not something that you have to go to school for or learn from books or learn from lectures. It's something that you can experience yourself because it feels good. It's the aha experience. It feels natural. If you feel yourself one with the world around you, with people, with nature, you feel good. It feels natural. It feels like you're home. This big city, big industry, big state, separation, always just hunting for one little bit of the pie, and one little slice, that is contorted and disconnected us from the rest of the world. Decayed our wholeness, I think. Allow yourself to come home. What you're coming home to is nothing less than the whole universe, because the whole universe is a whole of which you are a part. It's not a passive, mechanical thing. Or over 100 years ago, James Jeans, a great astronomer, said the universe seems to be more like a great thought than like a great rock. And certainly it's not a mechanism. So the universe is remarkable. It's almost a miracle, miraculous universe. Because the mind what Einstein said. He said there are two ways to live your life, either as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is. We have been living our life as if nothing is a miracle, and just everything that we can do is we can control, and we can make it do what we want to do. Living like everything is a miracle is having awe, having that attitude of acceptance, of becoming one, that all the great Eastern religions, spiritual systems talk about. Approaching the world with humility, and with a sense of the awe, of the greatness of there is. It is a miraculous world, and we are miraculous beings because we are holographic parts, hologrammatic, if you like, parts of this whole. It is in us. So what you need is not something artificial, not a doctrine, something that you have to learn. It's to allow it to come forth. It'll come forth. What I write is very much also my own experience. It's not just something that I learned and I want to communicate. It's what I want to allow to come forth. And then it comes. And just sit down, what do I really want to tell you? What do I want to tell the reader? What's the problem? The problems are all around us. That's not difficult to find. But how do we go about it? Go back to ourselves. I think this is, if you ask for a single message, I would say that. Go back into yourself. Be what you truly are, because then the world around you will begin to become what it truly is, a whole, a dynamic, self-evolving whole.
Mm, come home. I love it. Ervin, thank you so much for joining the show. How can people find out more about you? How can they buy the book?
Well, I think it's there on Amazon. It's there on Barnes and Noble. It's everywhere. It's a major publisher. St. Martin's Press used to be called Macmillan's, and it's available. It's available as an ebook, available as a print book, regular bookstore edition. It's available as an audio book, and I think soon we're going to get Kindle editions as well. So it's not too difficult to find. Look for
Sure.
my name or look for this idea of the immutable laws of the Akashic field. You will find it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. This has been phenomenal. Like I feel a lot of coherence right now with the universe because of my conversation with you, and I know that this will help many many people. Your work has contributed so much to this universe, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Trey, for being open, for being sensitive, and for being communicative. You are becoming something that we need, part of the whole, and you help other people to do that. That's a very, very important job.